Welcome to Pebbles of Light. I'm your host, Ann Maxon. Have you ever felt a bit lost during the dark times of life's challenges? I know I have. I'm so grateful for those friends, loved ones, and even strangers that have provided me a pebble of light in the form of understanding and support. They've blessed my life, sometimes even more than they know. Seeing a little bright spot on the path has helped me to move forward when things are difficult. This show is here to celebrate those who add light to our lives. We will share some of their stories as well as ways in which to light the paths of others. Please come find me on Instagram and Facebook at Pebbles of Light, as well as at ammaxon.com. I love having the opportunity to interact with you and hear about those who've added a pebble of light to your path. Enjoy the show. Welcome to episode 24 of Pebbles of Light. This episode is an encore of episodes 4 and 5 combined into one. It's an interview with my good friends Erin Gurney and Jessa Sebastian, and we talked all about friendship. Before we get into it, here's a quick word from this week's sponsor. This week's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I've always been a strong proponent of counseling services. Even in my professional career as a pharmacist, I've felt that the effects of any medication to help with anxiety or depression can only improve when it's paired with participation in counseling. But I get it. Sometimes there are barriers to being able to go to a counselor, whether that's finding time or figuring out the cost. BetterHelp strives to make counseling affordable, accessible, and convenient. They will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. If after meeting with your therapist you don't feel it's a good fit, it is easy and free to change. They even offer financial aid if needed, and I have a very special offer for Pebbles of Light listeners. Get 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/pebbles. That's BetterHelp, HELP/pebbles. And now, back to the show. My summer break from the podcast extended a bit longer than originally intended, but I'm so grateful to be back behind the microphone. I've been very self-reflective in figuring out where and how to fit the podcast into the busyness of my day-to-day life. And I thank you for sticking with me and being patient as I work through all the kinks. Moving forward, the podcast will air on the second Tuesday of the month. In January, I already have an amazing interview all set and ready to go with some wonderful friends, Deb and Cambry Austin. Cambry has hemiplegic cerebral palsy, and we talk all about grit, determination, and finishing strong even when the fight is hard. Be sure to tune in. For now, let's jump into this episode with Jessa and Erin. It was the first interview on the Pebbles of Light podcast, and it's so fun to look back on the early days. I love hearing their insights about vulnerability and friendship. Thank you for tuning in today for Pebbles of Light. We are talking today about making new mom friends when you move to a new town or a new area. So we thought a great title for this episode would be New Kid on the Block. And I have two amazing friends with me who have been such a help when I have moved. And I think we all could probably do a pretty awesome lip sync to some New Kids on the Block if we wanted to. But
yeah.
So I have Erin Gurney and Jessa Sebastian here with me today. And I'll talk a little bit about how amazing these women are and what a great help they were to me. But first, I'll let them introduce themselves. So Erin, do you want to go first?
I am Erin Gurney. I am a wife and a mother of 4, and I live in Nampa, Idaho.
Jessa?
So my name is Jessa, and I currently live in the beautiful mountains of Boone, North Carolina.
Jessa, do you want to talk about where people can find you?
Oh, sure. So I am on Facebook and the Instagram at Sebastian Design Dolls. And no joke, I actually get to meet some pretty amazing people through that and get to do some really special and unique things with them and for them. And I've just been super blessed that I get to do that, get to do a work that I find so fulfilling and creative and enjoyable. And that for some reason, people just love to be along the journey with me. And I just am so grateful for that.
That's true. I think maybe we need to do an episode about Jessa's doll business as well, because it has been kind of the origin story of it is phenomenal, but also the ways that she's been able to give back, the ways that she's been able to create dolls for children that have physical other handicaps, that she's been able to create dolls to help those children feel included in that, I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty special thing that kind of came and sort of fell into my lap.
Awesome. And like I said, so all three of us used to all live together. Now, Erin and I are pretty close. Jessa obviously is not, since North Carolina and Idaho are nowhere near each other. And we miss her greatly. But when I first moved up to Idaho, I had just finished pharmacy school and I had a 4-month-old baby. And so my kind of position, my station in life had changed quite a bit. So I had gone from being a student the majority of my life, because I'd had quite a few academic endeavors before pharmacy school. And so I'd been in school for a long time. And all of a sudden I lost that and I wasn't doing this profession and that I'd gone to school for. Instead, I was staying home with my son. And then we moved away from all of those dear, close, and supportive friends I'd had in Salt Lake. So I really struggled to kind of find my place when we moved up here. And I tried doing like blind dates. Have you guys ever done that? Like to try and meet new mom friends? Like it feels like there should be like a dating app for moms, right? So that you can get to know new friends, right? You can read their profile. I mean, I guess there's Facebook stalking, but
that's right.
It would be nice if there was like a way to be like, okay, maybe this person would be a good friend to me. So you kind of try different things out. And it was awkward. It was weird to try and find new friends. And I remember I met Erin. I was speaking in church actually, and Erin was one of the people sitting down in the congregation, and I just spotted her. And she was kind of my person to look at, like when you're giving a talk and you kind of need a person to center you. Erin was my person, which was kind of weird because I didn't know who she was. So maybe she thought
That's not weird. Erin has the most smiley, happy face ever. That's perfect. Of course it would have been Erin.
I know, right? She really does. And so I was just like, oh, this person, she seems so sweet and kind. And then shortly after that, I substituted in a young kids Sunday school class, and her son was in there. And I was like, this boy is amazing. He is just so wonderful. I need to find his mom. And it turned out his mom was the same person. So it worked out great. And then we just kind of became friends through doing that. But Erin, what do you remember of that?
So I remember your talk, and I remember you talking to me about my son, Porter, and you were like, he is amazing. I think he needs to be in our life forever. Yeah. Like, I remember you saying that, like, I need him to be in our life forever, like my boys, life. And I just remember our husbands actually served together in Brazil on a church mission. And so we kind of connected that way too. And I just remember Anne being just so direct and so kind. And so she was just like, let's get to the point. Let's be friends. And I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. And then I was pregnant with my second, and Erin decided she threw me a baby shower. And if you need a party thrown, both of these girls can throw an amazing party.
We like to party.
We have fun.
Yeah.
All right. And then I remember Jessa sat behind me in church, and I was like, wow, she has a beautiful singing voice. We should make sure we sit in front of this family more often. And
oh, that's nice. I didn't know that.
And then shortly after that, we got called to serve together in the primary, which is the kind of the Sunday school for the young kids. So we got to know each other really well through that. And then we did a preschool co-op, the three of us.
Oh, yes. The preschool co-op that was, oh my goodness. Well, I had the letter F, and I remember doing What Does the Fox Say? That song? And that had just come out, and like, I remember Jessa being like, I knew we'd be friends because you were like hip on the
on the pop culture.
On the pop culture. Oh, yes, that was fun.
That's awesome. So both of you have moved around quite a bit. Erin's husband has done a lot of dental training, kind of specialized dental training. So they've moved around a lot for that, for residency. Jessa, you guys have moved all over the place as well. Jessa just got back from Spain, but just as far as all your other moves, Jessa, do you want to tell us a little bit about your experiences moving to new locations and trying to find friends?
Sure. So we have moved for school and jobs and things, and mostly it was in the West. And, each time you move is a little bit different. And especially when you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and moving in the West, you can move across town and have a whole new circle of people around you just because of church boundaries and kind of what's going on with that. So even little moves like that kind of felt different in who you were seeing sort of, more regularly. And then 3 years ago, we moved to the South in North Carolina, which was an amazing change, but a big one for sure. And then a year ago, we moved to Spain, and that was supposed to be a year, but because of something, I don't remember exactly what happened. I feel like there was a global pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Something was going on that the world fell apart and we had to come rushing back. So we are now currently back in North Carolina. So lots of interesting opportunities to make friends, both, where I really understood people culturally, and then where I felt a little bit out of my element, and then where I felt completely out of my element. So just some different experiences with all of that.
I think the other benefit of moving as members of the church, or any church really, if you're a member of a church congregation, all of a sudden you do have this support system and babysitters. Like I think about people who move and they're not members of a church and they don't have that kind of automatic community. I was like, how do you do that? Like, how do you find babysitters and things like that? It was kind of interesting to think about.
So that I will say that's one of the points I wanted to bring up today is I have kind of always thought that, right? Like, being a part of a church community, you move and that's sort of an instant social fix for you. But actually, that's not entirely true, I have discovered, because one, I think that it kind of limits us. I will speak for myself. It limits me in my ability to go and seek new mom friends because I do think of that as such a fallback. Mm-hmm. So it's not as easy, especially where I am now. The church community is not big at all. I mean, our church boundaries stretch all the way into Tennessee and up to an hour away just for our immediate ward.
Wow.
Yes. So it's different. So I've had to learn some new skills in, okay, what do I do here? In that all of my mom friends are not going to be a part of my church community. Not that there's just for the sole reason that it's not as easy. So that's been interesting. And, I totally lost train of thought of the second thing I was going to say. I'll come back to it.
Well, and then what about in Spain? So you speak Spanish. So at least you had that. You could at least communicate, how do I find a bathroom and things like that. But
I had Google Translate, yes.
Nice. But what was that like over there? Because I would imagine that the church, like the number of church members, is it not as big? I guess I don't really know. Was there a large number of church members?
No. And no, there were not. And because we didn't have a car, we were unable to really sort of make friends or meet up in the ways that we would have done here in the States. Okay. So all of our social contacts, or the majority of them, came through either the university or the girls' school, because I have two daughters. And we did not put them in an international school. There wasn't one. So it was a local, semi-private Catholic school. And that's where they went. And so I was on the PTA, or the equivalent of the PTA there, and volunteered in the class. And I volunteered doing English classes with the middle schoolers. And so sort of through that, and it was interesting because the majority of the friendships that I were able to make and sort of maintain were through like WhatsApp. It was very much digital.
Interesting.
But it was amazing because it gave us both time, on both ends, to be able to sort of gather our thoughts, think of how we were going to say them, translate them, then get the response, so it was very different. But, people really were welcoming. And I think it was very helpful to have jobs and purpose. Whether that comes from church or through the school, like that was very necessary in being able to establish some of those connections.
That makes sense. Well, and before you left, you were very busy here doing product releases and launches. I don't know the terminology.
Sure. Yeah. That's good. Great.
And but going to Spain, you kind of had to close that down. So I feel like maybe in some ways you were similar to me, where when I moved, I was like, whoa, I kind of lost part of my identity in moving and trying to find your way in that regard. So that makes sense, to make sure that you get involved with things and you're able to find some purpose and things like that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Erin, how about you? I know you do a great job of integrating and getting involved in doing things. So what were some ways that you were able to do that as you've moved around?
I feel like it was pretty easy within the church community, but also within my husband's dental community, to just have instant friends. That way we'd get together and do things because we're all in the same exact circumstance. And we had little kids and we just got together. So that was actually really nice. I just think the most difficult for me was moving actually back to Idaho and being around family all the time and things when I had been away for so many years. I think like 7 years or so I had been away, and coming back and trying to figure out my new normal with family around, which is great because family is awesome and they're a support system and they're there for you. But finding my own place within my little area. So I think my best way, honestly, getting to know new moms is exercise. Okay, Jessa, you're not an exercise fan, but I've been better at it at times in my life, but I think like me being like, hey, let's go for a walk. Hey, let's meet up to go for a run. Let's do this. I think you get to know people so well when you're just walking together. And Anne and I, we get to walk together sometimes, and it's great. It's so fun getting to catch up and things. But for me, integrating myself in the school, in, my church community, and just kind of almost handpicking my own friends. Because I'll take a look at somebody and be like, okay, they look really awesome. They look so fun. I'm going to go be their friend. So I don't know. I just love surrounding myself with amazing women and good friends. So
yeah, I would say that you're very proactive. And just to clarify, that was not a dig, you saying that, I hate exercise, because that's a given fact. Like that was not just so everyone listening is not thinking you're being a mean girl. No, that's true. But yes, you're very much. So if I could share my story about you. So Anne, I feel like if I had to go back and talk about sort of our origin story, to me, it feels like we have just always been friends. Like I don't have a specific moment where I'm like, and this is what it was. We have always just felt so comfortable that it has always just sort of felt like we've been friends.
I agree.
With Erin, I remember, I was pregnant and I hadn't told anybody yet. And I was super sick and I was sitting in my backyard. And Erin shows up
in your swimsuit.
In my swimsuit. It was hot.
With a little kiddie pool. With your 3-year-old.
Yes. And you showed up with some kind of pasta casserole bake, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you talk about sort of that intention, because to me, when I think about you and making friends, it's you have purpose and you are, you're walking, or I have brought you this casserole because that's what you do. You have a token, I guess, to be able to sort of break that ice and, just to kind of close up that whole story. Right before I moved to North Carolina and I was packing up and was stressed with everything, you brought me that same casserole. And it was just very sweet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just sometimes feel like, I will be looking in a crowd, and whether it be on the PTO or at church or on my kids' sports teams, and just be like, okay, that's who I'm going to be friends with. And I just not pounce, because that's like an aggressive word, but like I just like make them be my friend. I guess you could say.
Well, you're very intentional about it. And I think going back to that conversation about like, is there an app for that? In some ways, maybe there is just kind of some intuition of knowing, okay, this person needs to be a friend. And when I moved up here, I was struggling. I reached out to some of those good friends and I kind of said, hey, I'm having a hard time making, or I don't think I would have been vulnerable enough to say I'm having a hard time making friends, but maybe they had asked if I'd made some good friends or not. And I said, oh, I'm not quite sure yet. And I had a friend who wrote back and she gave me some advice. And she said, just like as we prayed as missionaries to be led to those who are prepared, the Lord knows who can be your ministering angel friend. Pray for her and pray to be one too. So as we make friend finding kind of a matter of prayer, like we know that God cares about us and he's going to help us have the people in our life that need to be there, especially during that station in life. And so as we go to him for guidance, we'll, as Erin said, just be able to kind of look at a crowd or look at a group of people and know, okay, that's kind of the person that needs to be my friend. And there's a quote, I'll try and find it and I'll put it in the show notes, from C.S. Lewis talking about how the Lord is a master of ceremonies and he'll do that. He'll put people into our lives that need to be there, and how there's so many things that could change the ability for people to become friends. You know, in our case, where a lot of it is based on what church congregation you go to. I mean, you could live a block over and you would never, ever meet these people that will have such great influence on your life. That there really is kind of a divine hand in making those friendships as we allow that to happen. So what have you done to kind of continue those important friendships as you've moved around to kind of keep in touch with people and keep those going as you continue to make new friends? Erin, you want to go first?
Yes, I just have to add that Anne is the best at keeping in touch with friends. I've moved all around the valley, I guess you would say, and she is so good. I've lost touch with certain people, and when I see them, I'm so happy to see them. But Anne is amazing at keeping in touch. So I completely forgot the question. I just was wanting to tell that so
what
much.
do you do to keep in touch? But I mean, for me, I guess, I don't know if I keep in touch with everybody. So it's interesting. Just in March, I guess, I reactivated my Facebook account. I had it inactive or deactivated, whatever the word is, for about 3 years. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of people I haven't been in touch with. And to be honest, sadly, there's people where I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Like, based on our mutual friends, I think I know you from this stage of my life, but I'm not sure. So maybe I'm not super awesome at keeping in touch. I'll keep in touch with those that I need. As Jessa just said, like, Erin is sweet and gives amazing gifts. And just last week, we went out for my birthday and she just gives wonderful gifts. Everybody needs an Erin birthday gift. Just gonna say.
Let's just say clearance. Clearance is my best friend, and I find things and I'm like, okay, this person would love that, and so I save it.
And then she like stocks up, like she has little gift bags all ready to go.
Yeah,
she's fantastic.
I do. You never know when you're gonna need a gift for somebody.
Well, when when Jess was talking about breaking the ice, it reminded me of an awesome Erin gift story. Do you want to share it? Because you were there. I just heard about secondhand about a friend of ours who slipped and fell on the ice, and Erin came. Do you remember?
What? I don't remember.
So,
no.
Yeah, she fell and hit her head. So now, do you remember, Erin? Do you want to tell the rest?
Well, I don't like. I remember her falling, but I don't remember what I did.
You don't remember that you did?
Okay,
you brought her. What's it called? I don't know if you brought her icebreakers or like some sort of ice gum. What's it called?
Oh. Yeah, that sounds like me.
So she brought she showed up with like icebreakers or some sort of ice gum. I don't remember what the name of it is. And then you recited some song lyrics, I think. Is that true?
Ice
Yeah.
Baby. Did I? Maybe.
I love that this is so
Okay.
normal in Erin's life. She doesn't even remember. She's like, yeah, that's pretty on brand for me.
Probably.
I'm always doing things to embarrass myself, so that sounds about right.
I don't think you necessarily embarrass yourself though, because I don't know, maybe you feel embarrassed. I guess that's your call. But whatever it is that you're doing,
Well,
it's in order to bring a smile to someone else's face.
maybe it could be embarrassing for someone, but it's not embarrassing for me, but it could be embarrassing for me, I guess.
Well,
So.
I think that especially when you're making new friendships, though, you need that sort of personality because so it's interesting, Anne, that you picked both Erin and I because I think we represent sort of two different dynamics that happen with people or that can happen. And, if you look at it as like there's the type of personality that is the initiator, like Erin, and then there's the one that's maybe more reserved, like me. So I think back to when I was in Spain, there was this mom who was president of the PTA, and her name was Marianne. And she was so great about saying hello to me and making sure I was included and including me on all of the texts. And we started, you'll get this, walking together. Once a week, we would go walking together. And she did not speak any English, like literally.
Oh, wow.
And she was also of the opinion that I should definitely be speaking Spanish. Correctly so. I was living in Spain. I don't disagree with that. But it was incredibly awkward at times. But she was always so kind. We were invited to her daughter's birthday party. She made sure that she had gifts for my girls when it was their birthday. She was checking in. She was the one who set up the volunteer opportunities for me. And so, it's so important to be able to have that personality. But at the same time, if you're, like me, maybe a little more introverted or nervous, you really need to be able to be willing to reach out when necessary, but also be able to accept that into your life and be able to recognize it and realize what a gift that is and go with the flow and kind of take that momentum and keep going with it.
I like
That's
that.
true. And to be able to reciprocate it, I guess, to let them know that their efforts are worth it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, Erin, have you ever had someone who rejected you? Sounds like a weird term.
I don't know. I come on pretty strong. So if I'm not their type of person, then yeah, they've rejected me. I moved to another side of the valley, right? And this girl, like, she invited me to a play date, and I brought all my kids. I was excited to meet other new moms in the area. And I showed up and no one was there. Nobody, not one. And so I just like drove home and cried because I was like, is she not like what happened? I don't know what happened. And so I think, yes, there sometimes people realize like, okay, she's a little bit coming on a little too strong for me. Sometimes they warm up because I had another friend that I like went up to her. I knew her husband in college and I was like, hey, I'm Erin. I know you. Like, I know you. And she's like, okay, I don't know you. And she like was standoffish for a long time with me. And I just wanted to be her friend because I didn't know anybody except her husband. Eventually she warmed up and we're actually really good friends now, but it just took a little bit of time.
Erin actually gave me some advice. So when I most recently moved, I moved into an area where Erin's sister had used to live. We just missed each other by like a month or so. But Erin had said, oh, there's this girl who goes to church with my sister who's just fantastic and you should get to know her. So I saw this person at church and I was like, hi, you don't know who I am, but I know Erin and Erin's sister, and they said you're fabulous. And she through that. So that was me being brave and bold.
Yeah.
And
that was brave.
Know it was awkward. It felt awkward, but she's fabulous. And so she and I have actually become really good friends. And so I did a good job of trying to be
good job.
bold and brave.
I'm proud of you.
But so in these friendships that we've made, we've talked a little bit about how the three of us have been able to help each other through different things. But in what other ways have you been blessed? So the whole concept of this podcast is to talk about people who've helped shine light in our paths. So I feel like Erin's done a good job of making sure she's shining light in others' paths. And I know Jess and I both can attest that she's done that for us. But what are ways in which these friendships that you've put some effort into making, what are ways in which you've been blessed by making those friendships? That's a tough one. So if you need
Give
to
me a
think,
second.
Yeah. I would say, and I wasn't really going to the temple a ton before you invited me to come with you. And I'm going to cry a little because like it was a huge blessing just to meet up with you and go worship in the house of God. And I know that was just a small act on your part because you were like, I'm going anyway. But I was hugely blessed by that. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sad that we haven't been able to go for a long time.
And also, like Jessa, when we kind of moved away from each other around town, like if any of us were going somewhere fun or on a little vacation or something, we would get together and we would go get our nails done. And like I never got my nails done before Jessa and I started doing that. And
and I don't now either.
I don't either. But in that time, my nails never looked so good.
Exactly.
And that was our little time that we could just like chat and do something fun for ourselves. And it was amazing. I loved it.
That's so true. And it's so nice to be able to have friends for like those really fun kind of frivolous moments, but it always turns into good conversation. The friends that I've been able to make that have really sort of lasted with me, and sometimes they're not even friends, they're for periods of time and they're in circumstances that I need them. And there have been so many women that I have needed them in a real way. There have been things that I have not been able to do or would not have been able, situations that I've found myself in that I would not have been able to navigate as easily without their help. And truly, so vulnerability, I think, plays such a big part in being able to make those friends and being able to ask for help and accept that help right before, again, we moved here to North Carolina. Paul, my husband, and I got so sick and the moving truck had showed up. And I remember laying on the floor packing and just like trying to get within reach. And I had called my friend, Chrisanna, and I said, can you please just come help with something? I said, maybe you could pack up Paul's grandmother's china. Like I couldn't think of like, and she did. We were both so sick, but she came in anyway. She brought bubble wrap and tape and boxes and she packed all of my china for me. And then I didn't know it until months later, till we had moved and had the moving truck and everything. We were unpacking. She had labeled all of those boxes really funny things so that when people were unloading our stuff, they saw, oh, this box is labeled magic tricks or like juggling props. So they were all like really funny things so that I had that memory of her coming over to help me, but also like this really just sweet, tender reminder once we were here. And I was feeling super lonely that, she had come over to help me.
Oh,
I think, Jessa, you've probably had most experience with making friends outside of our Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And in what ways has that blessed you as far as having a better, kind of a well-rounded perception of church and church policies and things like that, and just making sure that you, understand other perspectives?
Sure. Do we have time for a whole separate podcast episode on this?
We probably could. That might be a good one.
Yeah, I have lots to say on this issue. So my husband also is no longer a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and living where we do, there are not a lot of members either. So especially these past few years have really given me lots of opportunity to, it's always something I knew and believed, but didn't really have, quite frankly, much access to people of different faiths. Mm-hmm. And here I have been able to see it firsthand in action. And I think I know for multiple of my friends, I'm the first member of the church that they've ever met. And so it's really kind of a sweet, special thing to be able to interact with them and see how they love their God and how they love their friends and their family and how much we really do have in common. And that's strengthening, I think, on both ends. Neither of us are trying, to convince either way, or why don't you be my friend so we can go to Bible study together, or, whatever. It's not like that on either end. And it's just so sweet and special to be able to see that in action. What was your question? I feel like maybe I didn't answer it. Did I?
You did. You answered it.
Okay.
But I feel like I've been seeing that a lot recently too, as far as just, I have a number of friends nearby who are not members of our faith. And I grew up outside of the church. So I have a number of friends, like a lot of friends in that regard. And it's been nice because doing this podcast, sometimes we'll send some episodes or some topics or ideas to people who aren't members of the church, just to kind of say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? We don't want to alienate anybody. We want people to be able to have a desire to listen to this no matter what their background is. What are your thoughts? And that's been an interesting experience as well. And like you said, it's not I'm trying to convince you that this is right or this is wrong or whatever. It's just to recognize what all we have in common. And there is a ton that we have in common. I think especially right now in the current political climate, it's so important to recognize that we're all on the same team. And that,
yeah. And if we're not, how do we navigate that well?
Yeah.
That's another really important piece, because it's not always going to be complete harmony.
Yeah.
That's the reality of life and any relationship. So being able to have a connection with someone who you feel differently from, in some areas is also super important.
Exactly. Erin, any thoughts?
I cherish my friends inside and outside of our faith. And I just think they're all important. We all have something to give to one another, whether we believe the same or not. So
we can all kind of help share light with each other in all the different ways. And I think, especially when it comes to making mom friends, one of my hesitations, because I'm not the go-getter that Erin is, I'm always like, oh, that person is so busy. I don't want to bug her. I don't want to, ask her if she wants to get together to do something, because I'm sure she's so busy. But I know sometimes in my life I've been pretty busy, and I'll get a text from someone saying, hey, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And it's always a relief. Yes, I do. So I think that's kind of a big takeaway too, is to not worry about that. And if someone says no, it doesn't mean that they're rejecting you. It may just not fit into their schedule at that moment in time, but that we can definitely make it a matter of prayer, or just trying to ask for guidance to be able to be led to those that, one, we can bless their lives and they can bless ours. And I think sometimes that's an interesting perspective to look at it too, is who can I serve or who can I bless? And in doing so, you're able to make these good friendships. I'm so grateful for those friendships that I've made with these dear friends. In the episode, we referenced a quote from C.S. Lewis, and I wanted to add it here. It says, in friendship, we think we have chosen our peers. In reality, a few years' difference in the dates of our births, a few more miles between certain houses, the choice of one university instead of another, the accident of a topic being raised or not raised at a first meeting, any of these chances might have kept us apart. But for a Christian, there are, strictly speaking, no chances. A secret master of ceremonies has been at work. Christ, who said to the disciples, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you," can truly say to every group of Christian friends, "Ye have not chosen one another, but I have chosen you for one another." The friendship is not a reward for our discriminating and good taste in finding one another out. It is the instrument by which God reveals to each of us the beauties of others. I've always loved that quote. And looking back, thinking about where he lists kind of the different things, the differences in the dates of our births, few more miles between houses, one university over another, topics being raised or not raised, I can just look at each of those things and think of particular friends that have come into my life through those choice coincidences, right? But we know there's not coincidences. We know that there really is a master of ceremonies helping us to find those friends that we need, that come into our lives at those times when we need them. I put that full quote in the show notes, so feel free to check the notes in order to get a copy of it. And also check the notes for a link to Jessa's super cute dolls. And if you still need to do some holiday shopping, check the show notes for a games gift guide that we put together last year. We made the gift guide short, sweet, with some tried and true games that we love in our family. And we made sure to keep it pretty unique so it's not all the games that you already have. So go check it out and reach out and let us know what your favorite games are so we can add them to our stockpile of games that we have. The pebble for this episode is to try to go a little bit out of your comfort zone to reach out to a new or an old friend sometime this week. For some, going a little bit out of your comfort zone may consist of sending a text that says, "Would you like to get some tacos on Thursday?" For others, it may be more like Erin. It would include singing Vanilla Ice while dropping off a pack of gum. You do you. Watch for the new episode on January 11th with Cambria and Deb Austin. It is such a great episode and so insightful and inspiring. Keep looking for the bright spots on your path, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in today. More than what has been said, I hope that you've been able to listen to your thoughts and feelings. Maybe you've thought of someone who's brought light to your path. Let them know of your gratitude. Maybe you've been inspired as to how to add some light to your own path or the path of another. Do your best to act on those feelings and impressions. I would love to learn more about you and your experiences. Please come find me on Instagram and Facebook at Pebbles of Light. If you like what you hear, please review so we can spread this light further. You can find show notes and more resources at ammaxon.com. Until next time.